Slam poetry.
He doesn't care if it's perfect.
It's time to slam now.
It's the biggest poem I've got inside of me.
She was a thief. You gotta
Love me, to love a haunted house.
Yelling, angry.
Blood black nothingness began to spin.
Specific point of view on
To
things.
this day, I hate pork chops. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
For when your mouth is writing checks that your ass can cash. It's I Think Therefore I Slam, the podcast bringing you the best slam poetry and spoken word artists from Australia and beyond. My name is Andrew Rogerson, and today my guest is a spoken word poet living on Dharawal Land in Wollongong, and they are the host of Enough Said Poetry Slam. She's featured at writers' festivals, folk festivals, and poetry slams all across New South Wales, and her writing has appeared in numerous anthologies from Baby Teeth Journal and Heroines Festival, as well as her poetry zines Equidistant and Crowdsourced Poems. She's performed in the Bankstown Poetry Slam Grand Slam in 2023 and 2024, and won in 2026 at the Sydney Opera House with her team. And their name was In Other Words. We're going to hear plenty more about this victory lap. Please welcome Adara Enthaler. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Andrew. Lovely to be here.
Now, I was just thinking about famous faces and names from Wollongong, and my mind kind of settled on Michael Theo from Love on the Spectrum. Are you familiar?
Yes, actually, I went to school for a couple of years with him. I might have been the year above. But yeah, he's such a sweet dude.
Oh, no way. Do you still see him around town at all?
Actually, yeah, a few weeks ago I saw him at the North Wollongong Rock Pool. He was climbing in, having a snorkel with his dad. It was very cute.
Oh, wow. Good to know. Oh, well, I hope wherever he is, he's doing well. I know he's had his own adventures in the podcast space, so I'm a big fan. Big fan, Michael.
Yeah.
Adara, we would love to kick off today's show with some of your wonderful spoken word.
I would love to. It is the rainiest nights that we are truly alone. Nights when the roads are canyons, flooded mirrors for the street lights. Nights when I shudder to the kind of thunder that seizes my heart in a fist and reminds me we are only held together by skin, that if we had a creator, they forgot us. That the earth will devour us faith, to bone, to marrow, and in the interminable crawl of decay and rebirth, we will not be remembered. So if I pray tonight, it will be with your skin between my open palms. I can't leave room for Jesus when the air is this heavy. There is no Holy Spirit but mine, and I can be holy enough for the both of us. You smell like sandalwood. I mean, probably. I don't actually know what sandalwood smells like, but that's what romance novels say is sexy, and I think you are very sexy. You call me beautiful. And when you say it, my hand doesn't go to my belly. I don't hide behind a smile, hoping its curve distracts you from the width of my thighs, because you are already kissing them. You say my body is a temple, and I say it's been a tourist attraction too long. My columns are rubbed shiny from too many hands touching in half-baked blessings. My mosaics are cracked and stolen. So remind me what it is to be worshipped. Genuflect at the door and wait for entry to be granted. Sweep the refuse from my aisle, scrape the pigeon shit from my ceiling, and we will scrub the altar clean together. Kneel at my feet, and baby, I will kneel at yours. Touch me back into existence and see me as I am, brand new, not untouched, but unbroken.
Yes. All right.
Thank you for the clicks.
Clicks all around. Of course. It's a staple. Do you reckon clicks came in because it's just an easier way to clap while you're also, holding a drink at the same time? Do you think that's where it comes from?
It might be why it's continued. I believe the origin has something to do with the grassroots poetry slams being predominantly in sort of coloured neighbourhoods in America. So they would have the cops called on them if they were cheering too loud. So they had to show their enthusiasm while not making too much ruckus. But yeah, it's continues today, and I actually have a tattoo of it on my arm.
Oh, you do? Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. So yeah, definitely a subversive thing. Loved the piece. You know, we're getting a bit spiritual, getting a bit sexy. It's all good things. Now, Adara, I don't want to bury the lead here. I would love to hear more about your team's recent victory at the 2026 Bankstown Poetry Grand Slam at the Sydney Opera House. Give us the play-by-play.
It was a blast. So for those who know how Bankstown's Grand Slam works, you get randomly assigned into a group with usually 3 other poets who also placed first to fourth in the Grand Slam, in regular Bankstown Poetry Slams the previous year. So I didn't know who I was going to get, but I got placed with Jamila, Samantha and Noor, and they were all so amazing. There's actually 20 years of age between our youngest and oldest member, but we found our common ground and we got to know each other and we wrote together. And yeah, we drilled the hell out of our poems. We made them really powerful in their performance, made sure we had them memorized. And then Sydney Opera House was so cool. We all had our own dressing rooms with our team name on the door and a drink bottle from Sydney Opera House with like the logo on it and the word Shookers, which I now carry everywhere with me, just hoping someone will ask me about it. And I'll be like, oh, this is from when I performed at Sydney Opera House. No big deal.
Oh, this
old thing. Yeah. And yeah, the show was in the concert hall, so seated 2,000 people, and they came pretty close to selling it out, I think. I've performed to some big crowds, but that was definitely the biggest. So seeing all of those people rising up in the stands in front of you is an experience I will not soon forget. But since it went so well, I have the joy of currently being very poorly acquainted with imposter syndrome. I'm not sure I remember who that is, a stranger from way back when, because, you know, I won. We won.
Hell yeah.
One of the, I think, 2 biggest poetry slam competitions in the country in terms of, you know, audience sizes. There's the Grand Slam, and there's the Australian Poetry Slam National Final, which is also at the Opera House. So yeah, it was so incredibly rewarding, and we so enjoyed sharing that experience backstage with all the other poets. There was so much support and love and warmth, and I'm so grateful to Bankstown's team for making that happen. It's huge.
Sounds like a dream. I've got to get up there at some point to watch, because it just sounds like the night of nights, you know, along with the APS final, as you were saying.
Get a bus together, drive through Canberra, pick up Canberra poets.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. And not your first time at the rodeo, obviously. And I'm just stunned at, you know, it must take so much trust. Like you said, you're kind of randomly assorted to a team. And is it like a play where you have someone feeding you lines if something does go a little bit awry on stage, or is it all or nothing? Yeah,
because I had already done it twice before, I had seen what had gone wrong and I had experienced some of what had gone wrong. So we put plans in place to mitigate that. So we had agreed, if anyone forgets their lines, the rest of us give it 2 or 3 seconds. And if that person is still struggling, just jump in and say their line and then continue as the poem goes. And yeah, we planned how many seconds we wait for applause before we walk off, because just there are so many tiny little elements of performance that can add to the impression of your performance. So we didn't want any awkward moments where half the team walks off and the other 2 are still standing there with gormless grins, enjoying the applause, and then go, oh no. So we wanted to look professional from the moment we stepped on stage to the moment we went up to the other side of the curtain. So yeah, we planned for all eventualities, and we were very fortunate. No one forgot their lines. I had about a half-second delay that I hope only I noticed. But other than that, I think we pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, clearly all the hard work and all the trust and all of your experiences has paid off. Fantastic. Adara, I want to know, what is your origin story, your starting point of creating and sharing your work on stage? How did it all come to be?
When I was at university, I did the creative writing major at UOW in Wollongong. I started getting involved in all of the literary things that I could. So I got an internship with the South Coast Writers Centre, and then someone at some point told me about Enough Said Poetry Slam, which has been running for 14 years this year.
Wow.
So wild. And yeah, I think I was just getting into writing more poetry through my degree and getting feedback on that. And then went to the slam a few times and I got really into it. And then I went, I don't know how long I was going before I ever got up on stage, maybe 2 or 3 years, but the team back then was just so encouraging. So whoever was on the door month to month would be like, are you signing up to perform tonight? And I'd be like, no, maybe next time. And they'd be like, okay, I'll ask you again next month. And then eventually I sat down and was like, I've been scribbling bits and pieces on receipts and notebooks and in my phone for a little while now. Let's sit down and see what I've got. And then I put it all into one Word document and went, oh, I've been writing about one thing for like a year and a half. This is all one poem. So I smashed it all in together and I performed it. And then for the very next month, the co-founder of the slam, Lauren Elizabeth, asked me if I would like to come back and be one of the support features for Bill Moran, who was coming over from the US to do, he wasn't featuring at the slam because it didn't line up, but they did an additional show. So for me to hear that from Lauren, that they liked that first poem so much they wanted me to come back and do, I don't even know if I did a new one or if I just did the same one. But I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not bad at this at the very least. And then I just didn't really stop from there. And I joined the team not too long after that. And then COVID happened in 2020 and I ended up taking it over. And now I'm the host and producer. And yeah, I just keep trying things and enjoying them. And I just keep on going.
Onward and upward.
Yeah.
So many people who I ask this question of, they will make reference to a person or a people who came before them, do you know what I mean? And who gently or not so gently encouraged them, dobbed them in, wrote their name down on their behalf. Are those the kind of people that you think of when you think back of you starting off in spoken word?
Yeah, definitely. So the person in particular who was on the front desk of the slam encouraging me was my now very good friend, Leo Luna, who also was the host before me. They took on that role and then, sort of retired from the team to focus on other things. But before they were even my friend, they could see that I had this excitement and urge to perform, but I just hadn't quite developed the confidence in myself to give it a go. And they just kept on encouraging me. And it was actually their hand that I used as a model for my poetry slam tattoo, which I didn't tell them about right away because I didn't want to make them cry. But they're a very, very special person and had a massive impact on Enough Said's slam and on me as a poet.
Please tell me you did tell them eventually about the hand thing.
I did, yeah. I had a few drinks in me and I leaned over to them on the couch at a friend's house and was like, this is your hand, right? And they were like, what? No. And then we both cried.
Did they hold it up, against your arm to compare?
Well, I had somewhat sneakily taken a photo of their hand months earlier or possibly a year earlier to plan this tattoo. But we were out at dinner at the time and I kind of understated it like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to I'm going to do a sketch myself. I just want to get an idea of what it looks like. I can't get a photo of my own hand from the right angle. Can you let me just check I've got this right? Yeah, let me just take a photo. So I didn't really let them know that was what I was fully planning on doing the entire time. But then later, after I told them, they were like, oh, you sneaky bitch.
And were there tears at the time?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, that was really special.
I'm always a big fan of making sure that we actually, vocalize when we've been inspired by someone. I think it's really important. So I'm happy to hear that happened.
Couldn't agree more.
So Adara, you really picked up the mantle for Enough Said Poetry Slam in 2020 and you've been carrying it ever since. How did that transition come about? Was that a natural, slow process or was it quite sudden? And also, how do you keep such a long-running and regular show feeling fresh?
It was a wee bit sudden. So I think at the end of 2019, Leo had told the team that they were ready to leave. They'd, had their chapter in the poetry slam and they wanted to do other things. The following year, our February slam, Elliot Cameron was going to host and then he said, oh, I'm actually not feeling amazing. Would you mind co-hosting with me in a couple of weeks? And I said, sure. And then a week later, we started getting the news about COVID being really quite serious. So then we were like, oh, so if you're feeling unwell, you probably shouldn't be on the mic at all. And he was like, yeah, no, totally. So you'll have to host by yourself. And I was like, okay, sure. And then 2020 was wild because we skipped March because that was the month we all went into lockdown and everyone pivoted was the key word of that year. And we ran a year's worth of online slams on Zoom, which was wild because I didn't have the audience to feed off. Everyone else was on mute except me or a poet who was performing. So I had to dial my enthusiasm up to about 100 times what it normally is when I'm sitting alone in my bedroom in order to make it a show worth tuning into from home, which was, I think, probably an important skill development for me. But yeah, I really enjoy that each slam sort of has its own personality. All of the hosts contribute in a very large way to what that slam feels like. So I've been able to sort of take the energy that already existed of Enough Said being a smaller slam with a large queer community and, you know, not too formal because we were always in sort of smaller venues. So we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we also put on a good show. So each month, you know, I go into the back and I do star jumps to get my heart rate up and get the energy pumping because you're not always feeling it on a Thursday early evening. And yeah, it gets a little bit chaotic at times. I'm definitely not afraid to embarrass myself on the mic for the sake of a few laughs. But yeah, and you got to feel out the room because, you know, the venue we're in right now fits 60, but sometimes it's raining and we have a slightly lesser known feature poet and we only get like 30. So on those nights, you have to kind of try a little bit harder to vibe up the audience and get them to click and cheer and respond because they're feeling a little bit more reserved. So yeah, it's all just about kind of reading the energy of the room and just making sure that everyone who's getting on stage that night feels so utterly taken care of by both myself as the host and by the audience so that when they get on that mic, they're ready and they know that everyone's listening to them 100%.
Sounds like you really have to take that experience of those Zoom years, if you like, where, you know, you had to be the loudest person for it to come across and sometimes using that to pep up the audience. I Think Therefore I Slam is brought to you by the Slam Fam on Patreon. Yes, these are the generous, beautiful, creative souls who help keep the lights on here at Podcast HQ. And for less than the price of a coffee a month, they get access to all types of exclusive goodies, including bonus episodes, previews of upcoming content, new poems and musings from me, and much more. To become a member, you can head on over to patreon.com/ITTIS or click the link in the description. Now back to the conversation. Adara, just before we started recording, we were both talking about our dislike of people who pike, who say that they'll be there or they'll go somewhere and then they don't show up. I want to know, what is the number one thing that makes an event host, and you have so much experience here, what's the number one thing that makes an event host happy? What's the number one thing people should do?
Buy a ticket before the day of.
Yes.
I'm begging you. I'm begging you. I understand that we have been in financial crisis and we are in an energy deficit. We're all running low on spoons, but it makes it really hard for events to plan in the short and long term if they just never know how many people are going to show up. And with poetry slams being as cheap entry as they are, it doesn't really hurt to buy a $5 or $10 ticket and then decide on the night not to go if you can afford it. But yeah, unfortunately, our generation and the ones below are all just not particularly cashed up. So we like to decide day of whether or not we have the energy to go to something. But I would just urge people to take into account that poetry slams give you energy. They don't take your energy. They give you so much. It's such a nourishing experience to be vulnerable and to have people be vulnerable in front of you. So even if you're tired and exhausted and you have to rummage in your couch cushions for $5, it is so worth it every time.
Surely everyone's got a couple of bucks, down the back of the couch, or there's some old ancient Dolomite account, sitting around that someone's still got a few dollars in.
A $5 in the center console.
Yeah, that's it. It's probably the same reason why we're so encouraged to pre-order books or pre-save tracks. All that pre-commitment, I think, is obviously so important, especially when you're heading something up. I guess it helps you plan, it helps you know what to expect, and it builds its own sense of momentum. The more it builds, I suppose.
It does, and there's a lot of events out there that cannot go ahead without minimum numbers.
Sure.
If they're hiring a theatre or a venue for their show and it costs X amount of money and they only make X amount of money on ticket sales ahead of time, and they're a really small production, they might have to cancel a few days out and all of that preparation is for nothing. And then day of, everyone goes, oh, where'd that show ticket link go? I was going to buy tickets to that. I was going to go. And they're like, well, why? We posted every single day for a month. Why didn't you buy tickets before? It's gone now. So just ahead of time, we're begging you.
We're begging you. We need your spoons. Let's go.
Yes. Yeah. Save up your spoons for the slam.
On that note, because you have such extensive experience as an MC, and not just at poetry slams, but we're talking, I heard that you'd hosted some singles nights and some other festival events and things like this. I want to talk about the times when it goes all wrong. Like, what are the biggest live event disasters that you've had to ride out or smooth over on stage? Is it crazy hecklers? Is it terrible weather that blows the stage down? What is it?
I think the most challenging I've had recently was my poetry slam team had a few sets at the Illawarra Folk Festival in January, and that festival got some absolutely torrential rain. And for our second of 3 gigs, we were in sort of a bush teepee tent outside with no mic or electricity. So we had to basically shout our poems over the rain, and I very quickly lost my voice. It was holding on by a thread for our evening set, but by the next day it was gone. So that was interesting. I learned who does and doesn't have an outside voice. So we're going to do a workshop on that, I think, later this year on, projection techniques in case that happens again. At our regular slam, I think the worst thing that ever happens is just that sometimes we get a bit of a dodgy poem. Like, someone will come on and they'll try to preach to the audience, or they'll do this really vicious poem about how much they hated their ex-wife, or something just a little bit too sexual. There's nothing wrong with an erotic poem, but just sometimes it's not really everyone's vibe, especially if it gets a little bit sort of objectify-y. So for those ones, I just try to sort of gauge how the audience is feeling as I'm listening, to see if they're feeling the way that I'm feeling about this. And then usually when a poet finishes and sits back down, I'll try to say something that responds to their poem. Like, oh, that's so great. That reminded me of this. Or, oh my God, that one line was amazing. Made me laugh. And then I'll go to the judges. But for those awkward ones, I will usually, unless they said something heinous that I think needs to very briefly and jokingly be called out in order to release the tension in the room, I will usually just go straight on to the judges. I'll be like, oh, right. Thank you, Glenn. Judges, what did we think of that? And then just steamroll past it so that we don't have to dwell on the awkwardness.
Yeah. There's kind of 2 speeds with these things, I guess. A few thoughts. When you were yelling your poetry over the rain, it sounds kind of cool in a primal kind of way to, be battling the elements. But I'm guessing after a minute or two, if you're doing a really long piece, it's probably starts to go after a little bit.
It can do, yeah. I did it at least once before. There was a sort of co-op space that I co-founded in beginning of 2019 called Society City in Wollongong. It was like a secondhand bookshop and a venue space. And the night that we launched it, with all of these things happening inside, we had soapbox poetry happening at the front, and again, torrential rain. So myself and a few other poets had to take turns standing on a milk crate, shouting the poetry into the rain. And yeah, primal is a good word for it. There's something very visceral about having the elements playing very enthusiastic backup to your poetry.
How do you go with, let's say someone's gone, a long way over time? Like, how do you deal with that?
It hasn't happened in too long. If they only go about a minute or so over time, they just get docked points and we don't really yank them off stage. But there have been a few in the past before I was a host. It's usually an older person who maybe didn't quite hear that it is a strictly enforced time limit and has like 10 pages of A4 paper stapled together and just keeps flipping through them. And yeah, at a certain point you have to go on and be like, you can kind of just listen for something of a pause and then jump on and be like, hi, that was so great, but you're out of time, sorry. And they go, oh, sorry. And then before they have a chance to object and say, could I just finish though? You just sort of move close to the mic and go, round of applause for so-and-so, everybody. Thank you so much. And just bully them with relentless enthusiasm to get off the stage.
It's less like the Oscars, where the orchestra slowly, rises. It's more like vaudeville or something. Someone starts, clicking on the keys or doing a little push or whatever.
If I had a shepherd's crook, I would have it handy just in case.
Yes, yeah, so true. So true. Here comes the barbershop quartet. Here we go. Long live Enough Said Poetry Slam. 14 years, that's extraordinary. Having just experienced a local event that was great, but kind of came and went all in the space of 6 months. 14 years is no joke. So looking forward to many, many more years. Adara, I think it's time for piece number 2. What have you got for us?
Let's do it. So intro to this one, slams are a wonderful place for people to talk about stuff that is a bit heavier in what's going on in the world. And my city, Wollongong, for a long time had weekly and then fortnightly Palestine protests. And there were people who ran those protests who came to the slam and became part of the community. It was so lovely to just have the space be a place for people to talk about, some of the worst things happening in the world and share it with people who are there to just kind of hold space. So this is my version of that. The Wollongong Palestine protest marches past the courthouse, the cop shop, security guards and boys in blue sauntering alongside the chanting crowd of kids, mums, teens and seniors, prams and wheelchairs rolling down Crown Street. We use our hands and voices to scream our anger of a genocide in our lifetime, one of several, of the fragile excuses of our government to not intervene, years of dribbling from the lily-livered lips of our elected politicians pussyfooting around the point. In the past 2 years of Wollongong Palestine protests, I've watched a woman's 2 sons grow up, chalking rainbow calls to action and climbing trees. That family has been there week after week, and I can't help but wonder how many Palestinian kids would be their age, their height, their level of joy, if Zionists with guns hadn't taken away their chance to grow. The urge to give up is strong, to let the blanket of indifference rise over my head and believe that there is nothing that I can do. But every time, it is the hands and voices at rallies that remind me it is not hopeless, that we can carve a better world even if it takes every breath in our bodies. When the people band together, it is only a matter of time before the fascists fall.
Thank you, Adara. I don't know what to say apart from it's going to be so interesting to see how we look back on this part of history in terms of all the things that are happening around the world, and particularly, I mean, I know in certain states of Australia it's gone so far that there are certain phrases and certain iconography that you just can't use, and it just doesn't seem like the right response at all. But it's great to know that there's people in your neck of the woods, because I see plenty of demonstrations going on all the time in Melbourne. But to know that there's people in solidarity all around the world doing similar things, it's really great.
Yeah, no, I agree. Wollongong is not a large city, so it was really 3 years ago now, because I wrote that poem a year ago. Yeah, to see 150 or so people showing up every week for a long time was really bolstering to have that. And and poetry slams I'm so grateful for, because they're one of the few art forms where absolutely no one is going to tell you that you shouldn't put politics in your art. That's an insane thing to say to a poet. No one's going to say that at a poetry slam. So it's a good, safe place to talk about the things you need to talk about that you feel like no one else in your life or in your workplace is discussing.
Do you think all art is political? And when we say political, I don't necessarily mean, things that are happening in the world. I just mean figuring out how we all live together in this big wide world. That's what I kind of mean by political, I suppose.
Yeah, I think nothing happens out of context. Everything is informed by something. So even something as simple as a child's drawing of their house and their family is political, because a child in Palestine would not draw the same thing right now. They would draw something else. So there is inherent privilege in the life of that child who lives in a safe home where the worst thing that's ever happened to them was broccoli. And that is political. Politics are in everything. I don't think anything, even a pretty oil painting of a yellow flower, exists only in the context of, well, isn't it pretty? Everything has surrounding context that makes it political in one way or another. And I don't think that detracts from the beauty. It informs the art.
Yeah, well said, well said. Well, we've talked about the many hats that you wear, Adara, and you also have this role as the marketing coordinator for Red Dirt Poetry Festival, right there in the middle of the Red Centre there.
My newest hat. I'm very excited.
Your newest hat. Okay, there you go. I want to know, how do you go about drumming up interest in spoken word and presenting it to new audiences? Because I've definitely been in situations, I'm sure you do as well, where you're talking about your involvement with spoken word with someone who has no context for that. And I have trouble pitching exactly what it is or what is appealing about it. I find it hard to vocalize. So what do you do as a marketing coordinator to present this beautiful thing to the world?
Yeah, it is a really lame thing to have to try to describe. It never sounds as cool as it is when you try. Annoyingly, video content is, I think, the best tool that lovers of weird niche things have at their disposal to show how cool something is. Because you just can't picture it without seeing, the energy of a room. Because almost every single person in the world, they go to a poetry slam once and they leave and go, that was really cool. And they're genuinely surprised because they didn't think poetry was for them. They thought it was that thing that they were forced to learn about in school. Poetry slams usually try their darndest to have, a camera volunteer and try to take content for Reels and TikTok just to try to show people who are outside of this community, this is what it looks like. Look how much fun we're having. And look, this poetry slam has professional videos of people who have performed. So if you're a performer, you could do that. So there are two main angles for marketing poetry slams and similar events. And one is, do you really like being on a microphone? Do you have things to say? This is a place for you. You will have an opportunity to do that here. And the rest of it is, do you just love art and vulnerability and events with a lot of audience interactivity? Like, it is not a sit down, shut up type of event. Poetry slams, we're clicking and we're booing the judges, not the poets. And we're mming, and I encourage everyone at my slam to heckle me as much as possible. Exactly. We hiss the judges, we yell at the judges. And it's genuinely a really, really fun time. So yeah, trying to find ways to show people what it looks like from the inside is, I have found, the best way to sort of encourage people along. It's the same as a shop front, if you can't see what the shop looks like and you have to go up a set of stairs and up several floors, it's a bit intimidating. But if it has a glass window right out front, you can peek inside before you step through the door. You're like, oh yeah, that looks safe. That looks fun. I'll go in there. And
that Venn diagram of, people who are interested in art and people who are interested in, I guess, the context that slam poetry happens in is probably larger than we think. I guess it's just about finding the right people, and going to where they are and being able to communicate that. Like, it's just something, I'm still trying to figure out. So it's good to get some input there. What can we expect from Red Dirt Poetry Festival 2026? It's coming up in August, I believe. Is that right?
It is, yeah, the 20th to the 23rd, I think. There is a massive array of artists. I cannot say who they are, but they're coming from all over the country. Red Dirt has a partnership with some writers coming over from, I think, Chile and maybe also Spain, coincidentally, that are getting involved in one or two of the events. We're going to be activating Alice Springs Airport with some interactive poetry stuff. So as soon as people land in Alice Springs, they can find out about the festival and read some lines by, I hope this isn't a secret. I don't think so. Read some lines by the poets who are performing. And yeah, there are things under the stars. It's all over. It's daytime. It's nighttime. There's a school program. There will be a heat. The Central Australia heat for the Australian Poetry Slam will be happening during the festival as well. The one winner of that will go along with the Darwin heat to the national final at Sydney Opera House later in the year. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's a lot.
Amazing. We'll have some more information and some links to the website in the episode description. Hey, quick pep talk. If you're enjoying the episode, I'd love it if you could leave a rating, review, comment, or like wherever you're listening right now. You know how this works. Every little bit of digital interaction helps people to find the show and keeps the poetry flowing. And if you want to do something extra special, please share the episode with someone who you think will vibe with it. That also helps with all of the above. Thanks so much for listening. And now back to our guest. I want to change gears now, Adara, and talk about zines and the magic of zines, which is not something I'm super familiar with. I've certainly had other guests on who are zine connoisseurs, and I've got some more people coming on who are zine connoisseurs. You grabbing the collection right now?
I am literally. I ran a workshop recently, so I have some choice zines right here. which I will hold up as I am
Amazing.
speaking for the people
Yeah.
who cannot
you,
hear me. I can describe a few.
Yeah, can you tell us what do zines bring to the creative table that differentiates them from books or other kinds of poetry collections or anthologies? Because you've chosen to release some collections as zines.
Yes. Yeah. So the amazing thing about zines is that the most accessible form of publishing. It is available to anyone with access to a printer and maybe a stapler if they need one, maybe just a pair of scissors. It is the most immediate way to get something that you created into your own hands and then into everyone else's hands as well. It's so accessible. So I'm not yet to brave the process of sending my work into publishers and trying to get a book deal. It sounds awful, but I can still share my work with people, which is really lovely because when you perform for people who've never heard you before, you get people coming up to you being like, do you have your stuff anywhere? And if you haven't been published, you're like, I don't know, I got some videos on my Instagram. But if you have a zine, you can say, well, I have this little thing for $5 in my bag. And yeah, it's such a sort of community-led art form where people they make the dumbest stuff. So mine are obviously poetry zines with a little bit of art, some partnerships with artists because I do not have a visual bone in my body. But then people make super silly stuff as well. Like this one says, little things that remind me of you. And it like folds out like an accordion. So they didn't even have to staple that one. I have a little one that's like the size of a matchbook. That's like a little poem through space. They can be, so my ones are more A5. So I have, about 10-ish poems in each of them. But a lot of zines are just one single poem or collections of art or comics or funny jokes. Like here are the weirdest AO3 tags that I have been able to find, which is the fan fiction website. Or like, here are a bunch of drag names that I thought would be funny. Or here is Tinder if it was entirely for gnomes. And a lot of it's personal as well. There's a lot of like, I've been on tea for a year and this has been my experience. Or like, last year my nan died and I ate 433 pieces of toast. And it's just that experience. Like, it's just so... It's completely open. You can do literally anything. If you're not good at drawing, you can collage. You can just cut bits out of magazines and things that you find at op shops and do it that way. It's so, so accessible.
Sometimes the art form reminds me a little bit of like the little illustrations that Andy Griffiths, National Children's Book author treasure, used to do in the margins of all the Terry Denton books. There'd be little flip cartoons or, just stupid little one-liner puns or whatever.
So wholesome.
I saw this video by Struthless, again, another Australian / New Zealand creator. He was recommending zine making as a replacement for doom scrolling. As in, he was saying that to make a small zine, even if you haven't finished it, to actually rubber band it around your phone so that every time you go to pick up your phone, instead you pick up the zine and you do a little bit of work on it. I thought that's really neat. I mean, he's another massive advocate. So yeah.
I love that. That's such a good idea. That's the solution to some of the world's problems, I think.
Do you have any grand visions for what some future or ultimate zines might be for you, or does it look like more collections?
I would really like to try my hand at collage. I keep defaulting to just flicking through art books and then pulling out existing art, and then I have all these pages of things that I can't really do anything with because they're already completed. So I really want to try the art form of cutting things out and rearranging them in interesting ways and then using that as a backdrop for poems. The zine fair that I run is this Saturday, which will be already happened by the time this episode comes out. But yeah, I've got 2 days to finish a few things and then go to Officeworks and stand in line at, 9 p.m. and piss off all the employees by printing off everything at the last possible minute on Friday night.
Just one more thing.
Sorry. I meant for that to be double-sided. Sorry. Could you just really quickly? Horrendous.
So you're about to be immersed in the absolute the zine cinematic universe.
I absolutely am. Yeah, my a couple of friends and I run it. It's in its 4th year. Strangefold Zine Fair at Wollongong Town Hall, and it's so lovely. We've got 60, 70 odd tablers coming from Sydney. Sometimes we get people from Central Coast and Blue Mountains, and they'll be laying this stuff out on their tables, and the people of Wollongong can have a walk through and buy things for as little as 50 cents or more dollars, help me make my rent. and go home with, these tiny little snapshots of people's lives and their art. And we're setting up a workshop in the room next door as well. So, and there's a competition so people can try their hand at making their own zines and winning stuff. And yeah, it's an amazing way to spend a few hours. I love it so much.
Wow. Well, can't wait to see the highlights once it's all wrapped up. Just quickly pivoting back to the longevity of Enough Said as an event. I'm usually not super good with hypotheticals, which is why I like to ask them rather than receive them. So here's one for you. If Enough Said Poetry Slam closed its doors tomorrow for some reason, what is the one thing that you hope the Enough Said community takes with them that proves that the work and the time there mattered?
Well, hopefully we're not calling that down into the universe. Enough Said should run for another 16 years at least, so we can make it an even 30. But I would say what I really want everyone who comes to the Poetry Slam to understand and accept in their heart is that everyone has the right to take up space, especially on a microphone. A lot of people go through the world constantly apologizing for themselves. And even when they get to the Poetry Slam and they've wanted to do this for so long and they've finished the poem and they memorized it, but they don't trust themselves, so they have the book in front of them and they do the poem and they're nervous and then they get off stage as quickly as they possibly can with this little shrug as soon as the poem was over. And that's okay to be nervous, but I really want everyone to understand that they have every right, as much right as anyone else, to get up on a stage and share their work. They don't have the right to be on every stage. Just because you perform once doesn't mean you get to go to every event ever and be like, I'm amazing, put me on your run sheet. But yeah, it's an amazing place to be able to share what is important to you to share, whatever that may be. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have been doing it for years before you ever get up on a Poetry Slam stage. You can just try it and the audience is going to be right there with you, no matter where you are, at another slam. It's a different but similar energy at any Poetry Slam. And they're just there. They're there for you and you're there for them.
Wow, what a vision. I'm getting fired up here. This is great. Speaking of collage, as we were before, I now want to add your answer to the collage of our overarching creative analogy for season 3. So if your creative work is a colour or a shade in the colour spectrum, what is it and why?
I think it would be a very, very deep plum sort of colour. I want the pink tones in there for the femininity. I want the closeness to blood for all of the visceral kind of topics that I often talk about. A lot of my poems come, from the body, and they talk about things that happen, in us and to us. And I want the femininity, and also my hair is pink. So I feel like I couldn't pick a color that wasn't somewhere on that spectrum.
Deep, deep plum.
Yeah. And it's, it's a bit sexy, and so is my poetry for the most part.
Very nice, very nice. Now moving on to the segment which we've nicked, we've stolen it. We've been a bit of a klepto from Diary of a CEO. This question comes from my previous guest, Andrew Horner, who asks, do you think social media platforms are diluting artists' authenticity with the pressure to constantly create content? Oof.
I don't know if that's happening to poets specifically. I definitely think it happens overall. I think a lot of us, maybe less so now, I think Gen Z is doing a better job of just kind of shitposting whatever. But millennials in particular, we were teenagers for the most part when Instagram came out. And so for a long time, a lot of us were going into every fun or interesting experience thinking about how we could get a good photo of it for social media. And I and a lot of others are still sort of training our way out of that. But it's also a helpful tool. Unfortunately, the pages that you see on Instagram that are entirely screenshots or images of poems tend not to do all that well because people respond to faces more than anything else. That's something I've learned over the years as a marketing coordinator, is that you can take the most beautiful photo of the world, but it still won't do as well as a photo with someone's face in it. That's just what people respond to the most. So unfortunately, it means that a lot of us have to make our face our brand. You don't have to, but it is a tool that you can utilize to get people to pay attention and then go into the comments or swipe to the next image and look at your poetry that way. Social media can be a bit of an accountability machine as well, if you like. You know, if you're not performing as often as you'd like to, or you're just not interested in performing at all, you know, a page poet doesn't have to be a spoken word poet and vice versa. It can be a journal. A lot of people can treat social media like a digital journal and a place to share what they've written immediately with the world and not wait for it to be published somewhere. So it has pros and cons, basically.
As someone who's kind of dipped my toe into some of the newer platforms, so like a Blue Sky and an Upscrolled and stuff, I'm always amazed at these newer platforms. They're so much quieter just in terms of visual noise. And, you know, that's going to change in the future. You know, who knows how long they're going to stay in that state or if they're going to rise or fall. I mean, I guess we'll see. But I'm always interested, like I would gladly pay, this is my stance on social media in a nutshell, I would gladly pay for social media if it helped me spend less time on it, which of course is not what it's currently designed to do. It's designed with all the little hooks and everything that we know it has, right?
Yeah, it's the addiction machine.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear that's
see.
how it's going on the new platforms, because I work in events, so platforms that are not location-based have no benefit to my work, so I haven't really bothered with any of the new ones, but it's nice to hear that they are more conversational than anything else and they haven't yet been completely taken over by advertising and algorithms.
Yeah, there's no AI junk there yet. Like I said, it's a stark contrast, but whether it stays that way or whether they live and die by that sword, we'll see. I guess you just got to find the flavour that suits you. Now, Adara, you get a chance to, I guess, buy a brick in the house that is, I Think Therefore I Slam. What question do you want to leave for my next guest, Sight Unseen?
So, harkening back to something I just said, there is spoken word poetry and there is page poetry. How much do you think these two forms of poetry can and should overlap? Should the page poet go to poetry slams and learn from spoken word poets so that they can read their work when they have book launches? Should the slam poet try to get their work published in literary journals, or can they attain legitimacy without that? What do you think? Can they exist together without each other? How do they work?
Is it the chocolate and peanut butter of literature? Who knows? Or is it the oil and water? We'll find out next week.
Can't wait.
Very good. I appreciate that, Adara. Now, before you wow us with your third and final piece, we'd like to know that if people want to learn more about you and what you're up to, see some of your work, where's the best place for them to go?
I have a website. It is adaraenthaler.com, and I post my major accomplishments there, but I update my Instagram more often, which is at the poet Adara. So anytime I have a gig where I'm performing or emceeing or doing typewriter poetry or whatever it may be, I will post it there, and that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. And again, we'll have all the links for that in the show description. Adara, would you mind playing us out with your final piece for today?
It would be my pleasure. It's a bit of a longer one. I wrote it only a few weeks ago for International Women's Day, and it's called Ode to the Trans Girls. Ode to the Trans Girls. Waking up smelling of petrichor, the smell before rain, prophesying a downpour of change, a blossoming warmth, the scent of things to come. Ode to the trans girls, whose hair smells like burned gum leaves from the harm reduction burning they are undertaking, sifting through the underbrush of their genders, spotting the parts that no longer serve and scorching them away, a careful destruction of fallen foliage to prevent future catastrophe and allow new growth to shoot forth. Ode to the trans girls who have shown me their changing bodies, sending selfies of arched backs in underwear, asking for recommendations for their brand new hips and whether their sports bras need an underwire. Ode to the trans girls who have come out to me at midday pub lunches and Instagram DMs, who have swum through my castaway clothes and gone home with a curvy girl starter pack wardrobe to go with their new pronouns. I'm sorry you can't have my bras. You have perky runway tits and I have checked baggage, but if your boobs aren't growing as fast as you'd like, let me take you out for fried chicken or mapo tofu. Maybe the extra estrogen will help. I wish I could give you some of mine and then we could both fit into a D cup, but I'll go bra shopping with you anyway. An ode is a love letter from a poet. But everything a poet writes is a love letter to something, and MTF transition looks an awful lot like a love letter to womanhood, to girlhood, to the intersection and overlap of feminine and masculine. Ode to the trans girls who taught cis women like me that there is no one way to be a woman, that we need no pregnancy nor unwavering softness to be part of this divine sisterhood, who showed all my cis sisters with facial hair and infertile wombs and broad shoulders and long necks that they are so, so beautiful. Ode to the trans girls who safety pinned together their style with such chaotic precision that my best friend has to run up to you on the street to compliment you. And we see that fear in your eyes before you realize what she's saying. I'm so sorry, you have reason to be afraid, but I promise you're safe with us. Ode to the black trans girls at the Stonewall riots throwing bricks at hateful cops on the front line, and to the drag kings at Sydney Mardi Gras protesting genocide. We must protect the dolls as the dolls have protected so many others. Ode to the trans girls who had to burn their Harry Potter novels when their author told them they were destroying what it means to be a woman. I promise you, a middle-aged British lady in a mold-covered castle is not the authority. This is an ode to the girly pops, the hyperfemmes, the skater butchers. Ode to the girls wearing cat ears and Metallica tees, the girls buying power tools at Bunnings, the blue-haired lesbian emo T-girl DJs, and the cottagecore crafty housewives. Ode to the girls packing heat in their mini skirts, dicks bigger than the men policing Reddit, deciding who can and can't call themselves a woman. Ode to the trans girls who saw the TV glow, who felt something in their ribcage vibrate so hard they couldn't ignore it any longer, made a knife of their insistence and cut their way out of cages made of flesh. Ode to the trans girls who, in my hours of self-hatred, of bitter resentment of what it means to be a woman in a misogynistic world of men, showed me that it must be worth all this pain if you would go through so much to become one. A writer from Salem, Massachusetts said that God made trans people for the same reason. God made wheat but not bread, and fruit but not wine, so that humanity could share in the act of creation. And I don't believe in God, but if that is the case, then I am a holy witness. To the trans girls on day 1 or day 10,000 of girlhood, you do not need my personal welcome to a worldwide community of women. You were one from the moment you realized it, but by God, you have it anyway.
Wow. Adara Enthaler, the pride of Wollongong, Enough Said Poetry Slam, Red Dirt Poetry Festival. Check out all the things. Thank you so much for thinking with us and slamming with us today.
Thank you, Andrew. This was beautiful.
Weetabix fans, what's that all about?